Okay, so I'm gonna be doing some book reviews right now. I'm gonna be reviewing a couple of books that I've been reading lately. Um, so the first book I'll be starting with is The Temple of the Golden Pavilion by Yukio Mishima. So this is a pretty interesting book. It's Yukio Mishima is a pretty interesting author himself. He's quite mysterious, and he has some really interesting ideas and some interesting relationships between himself and the concept of beauty, right? And this book certainly reflects some of those controversial and interesting um, controversial and interesting relationships. Um, so what this book is about, if you were to look up what the Temple of the Golden Pavilion is about, what you're going to find online is that it's about a young Japanese boy uh, whose father is a priest at a Zen Buddhist temple. And then the kid himself comes to become an acolyte at that very same temple, um, the Golden Temple, as it's referred to throughout the book. But when you actually read this book, you will, I think you'll quickly realize that it's not about the kid becoming a Buddhist. It's about this kid's I forget the main character's name. It only mentions it a couple times throughout the whole book, and it's also some Japanese name, so I don't know. But you'll realize quickly that it's not about him becoming an acolyte, and it's about this kid's struggle with his relationship with beauty, right? Because the main character is described to be a very unattractive and ugly kid. Um, so when he sees things that are beautiful, he feels like I don't. It's quite difficult to exactly articulate or even understand what's really going on. But I think what I picked up is that because he himself is not beautiful, that he feels that he has to destroy all other things that are beautiful, right? And many things that were beautiful to him were destroyed outside of his control. They were destroyed without him wanting it to be destroyed. And I won't go too much into the things that happened to this kid, but he ends up, needless to say, developing uh, quite a strange relationship with the concept of beauty, and uh, he finds himself coming to the conclusion that Mishima seems to portray in a lot of his literature, and that's the destruction of beauty, right? But I still don't completely understand this book entirely, um, because I think I understand Mishima's philosophy in general and Mishima's own relationship with beauty, right? He talks a lot about the death of Japan, um, and how in order to um, in order to create a better Japan, the modern Japan or the current Japan needs to be killed, and then um, something like a new Japan needs to be erected from the ashes or something along the lines of that. So that's understandable why he would why he would be for the destruction of beauty, right? Um, but what I don't quite understand is that this book seems to almost be explicitly anti-beauty. It's quite interesting. I don't completely understand it. I don't know if many people on Earth really do completely understand the mind of Mishima, but he's certainly a very interesting author. Um, and it even seems in the book that Mishima portrays a very thorough understanding of of beauty and of the mystical experience, because there's a number of mystical experiences that the um, that the main character himself goes through. And he finds himself being overwhelmed in these mystical experiences, yet he still chooses the path of destruction to destroying these. So, yeah, it's The Temple of the Golden Pavilion. It's quite an interesting book. Um, this is the first book that I've read from Yukio Mishima. The reason that I chose to read this book, as opposed to one of his more popular works, such as The Sailor That Fell from Grace with the Sea or Spring Snow, the reason I chose to read this book right here rather than anything like that was because I particularly am very fond of things of architecture and beauty, especially mystical architecture, such as temples. So I figured I would look for something that seemed like it would be a portrayal of that same appreciation for beauty, especially in temples that I myself find. Um, but that wasn't exactly what this book gave me, right? Um, if you're looking for a book or if you're looking for a book that is portraying the beauty of something, and if you're looking for a book that is trying to express beauty, I don't think this is the book you're looking for, right? I think I think you'll be somewhat disappointed with this book, and that's not to say that it's a bad book, but it's just not what you're looking for. That's what I was looking for when I started reading this book. I was looking for something that could like take me through the beautiful life of a monk on a temple, right? An ascetic Buddhist monk on a temple. That's not what I got, but it was still nonetheless a very exciting ride, and it definitely left me surprised, and I'm definitely very glad that I read it. Um, so yeah, I don't know what else there is to say about this book. It's a good read. I can definitely see why it's not as popular as some of his other books. I think no, I think there are very few people out there who have read this book. Maybe only some of the more diehard Mishima fans have read this one. Um, but yeah, that is my opinion on this book. So this has been my first book review. Um, I'd probably give this book something like probably an 8 out of 10. This book is probably an 8 out of 10 right here. I definitely think it's worth the read. It's not a, it's actually I don't know. I probably would go far as to say that it was barely, just barely amazing. I would say it's barely amazing in that it expresses a very the expression of the book is very poetic, right? There's very clear motifs throughout all of the book that are very repeatedly portrayed. Most common motif being the destruction of beauty, right, for one reason or another, and it does a very good job of keeping up this poetic motif throughout the book. And yeah, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10 for that. So yeah, that's one more time. That is The Temple of the Golden Pavilion by Yukio Mishima. So this has been my first book review.